Thank you for watching this series aiming at preparing for the paradigm shift and mindset transitioning, redefining the philosophical meaning of society and establishing natural law as a model to overcome the prevailing world dystopia. Anybody grasping what is said here would rightfully never support such a social construct. I know more than you, and therefore I am right, also sustain class wars. In a voluntary society, people who know more must seek to elevate others instead of seeking power.
Within the next 20 years, it is highly likely that we will be in the presence of the world's first trillionaire. But how would one amass such an enormous wealth, you may ask? Simple. Asteroid mining. In an interview in late 2016, Neil deGrasse Tyson revealed the secrets to amassing an enormous wealth.
You ready? You ready? You listening? It is likely that the first trillionaire will be the person who exploits the mineral resources on asteroids.
However, this is nowhere near the price tag of the most valuable asteroid ever found. Asteroid 1903 LU is the 7th largest asteroid found to date. Discovered in 1903 by the American astronomer Raymond Smith Duggan, it orbits the Sun in the main asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, and is composed of nickel, iron, cobalt, water, nitrogen, and hydrogen, all of which are extremely resourceful to companies around the globe. It is worth so much that I'm not even completely able to comprehend it. At 323 kilometers in diameter, asteroid 1903 is worth a mind-boggling $15.38 quintillion. Let that
Ownership is a centerpiece of centralization. No monetary system will ever match the generosity of Earth. And the idea to own nature is not only a paradox but a recipe to justify endless plunder and human rights abuse. Capitalism is based on ownership's rights to start with. And centralization uses that very premise to consolidate power in the hands of the very few. We cannot have it both ways. World corporations are the absolute embodiment of such a fallacious premise. Owning Earth and this life also means owning knowledge, because only knowledge can allow some to remain the main owners of civilizations and restricts or expand ownerships of their citizens as they see fit to suit their own interest. In this sense, being denied the access to knowledge and centralization are bedfellows. The origins of power are easy to guess. What most people won't easily admit is that power is the result of collusion between influential people, regardless of their social ranks or denominations. When going down the ladder of comment, we also can notice that many are interested in directing others. They are called managers, CEOs, supervisors, etc. The latter to extract their own power from being in the know at their own level. Children also exhibit the same patterns. What is essential to grasp here is that it is a taught behavior. Children learning from cartoons, movies, and more negatively watching siblings and friends. The cultivation of power is a systemic dogma. So when people happen to shake their heads, contending that it is sadly the human nature, well, sorry, far to the contrary, it is not. It is about time to think of the intangible, and that the change must come from each individual first.
from Europe have started taking advantage of pollution and scarcity. Who owns water? Who gets to make the decisions about water?
Water privatization was forced on Bolivia by the World Bank.
Water is the most precious commodity for them in the world. It's blue gold.
Water is a common resource. Water is not a property.
The water sector is going to grow at 2 to 3 times the global economy over the next 20 years.
The market is amoral, and it's going to lead you to selling to those who can buy it and not to those who need it.
Right, the market is immoral because the premise of owning Earth is the gravest intellectual perversion ever to start with. Then profit-seeking merely adds to the injury as it is the tool to privatize Earth resources. The consensus wants people to rely on organizations dedicated to the environment and human rights for the peace of mind, while never questioning the premise of owning Earth itself, nor the poor results of their favorite organizations. As a result, problems have grown exponentially, making solutions more elusive and out of reach as time goes by. Saving humanity is a philosophical and metaphysical issue, and the real stakes have been hidden from us. The owning life and the Earth mantra is taking our civilization down. Earth owns us, each of us, period. What makes knowledge harmful is when it is hidden, or if you prefer, occulted. It becomes spontaneously predatory, so to speak. When thinking that one has the legal right to be more intelligent and rule over Earth, one is in fact condoning the servitude of all lives. What works both ways, though? Ignorance morphs into servitude in a Darwinian-oriented society. The conclusion is that either way, we really must question the right to access data, because if we perceive the destiny of the less smart as ineluctable, the same happens to the smarter simultaneously, because there is always a social layer atop, in the know, occulting knowledge. Here is the twist. It is impossible to force nature to produce more than what she can give away, when the spontaneous and symbiotic equilibrium is coerced by the means of profit-seeking. Monetarism is cause of scarcity because the so-called market forces always attempt to control demand and supply. Such attempts always generate unintended consequences. Obtaining abundance requires, first, the understanding of such inner workings and how this powerful, though fragile, biological equilibrium can be sustained when working in harmony with biology and natural law. Any biological interferences not unfolding according to the natural order will bring about disastrous aftermath. As we can see today, pollution and the corruption of nature by monetarism is beyond belief. Examples abound, but here is one very telling. The once life-saving discovery of antibiotics is now turning society's massive production of livestock into a threat to itself and humans.
So that we're not as obviously visible.
This might fly like anywhere, so you might want to back up, like a lot.
These are not farms. Those places barely exist anymore. Most animals used for food are raised on massive industrial facilities like these, holding thousands upon thousands of animals. They produce so much feces and urine that the waste is dumped into gigantic open pits like this one. The stench of these places can be smelled for miles around. These facilities also use massive amounts of resources, such as millions of pounds of government-subsidized grain and millions of gallons of water that is needed to grow that grain. And the animals who would normally graze on pasture find themselves standing on dirt lots hour after hour, day after day, month after month. Every one of us has the power to help stop these practices.
A free society is by definition composed of individuals that want the knowledge equally shared, openly accessible, and much more importantly, teaching such a premises. Unfortunately, it is where monetarism stands in the way, preventing the knowledge from spreading evenly, and the understanding that owning Earth blinds us to what life is really about. Living in symbiosis with the ecosystem, which has enough to feed close to 40 billion people if we could ever abandon the monetization of life. Today we waste 50% of the world food production, and half of the world population is still starving. We should be able to foresee the problems ahead in any new approach, and always choose the least coercive solutions. But societies have been too conditioned to reject any change challenging the norms for much too long, and a paradigm shift is on the horizon. It is truly discombobulating to witness the systemic pillage of nature and the normalization of human suffering. All this because of the ignorance of natural laws, which have turned against mankind.
You know, they were talking about climate change yesterday, and now we're learning that scientists and researchers are looking at how to change the weather on purpose. That's right. Lasers now could one day manipulate rain and lightning. CBS This Morning contributor Michio Kaku is a physics professor at City College of New York. Professor, nice to see you. Extraordinary seeing Al Gore and Bill Clinton there together with Charlie, wasn't it?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, they did not get into this discussion,
no.
though. But it is fascinating. I mean, lasers, really, to change the weather?
April 10, 2018. China to make it rain over area 3 times the size of Spain. I want to thank my subscriber for sending this along to me. You know, we are living an unbelievably surreal life now. It's hard to understand how it is that people are denying weather modification. Oh God, when there is so much evidence of it.
The bad news is, if it's a clear blue sky, it's not going to do anything at all, because it only takes water vapor that's already in the air and condenses it. However, for floods, for agriculture, farmers, for people planning wedding parties, football games, you name it, outdoor events and agriculture and flooding and even hurricanes, all of them could be subject to weather modification.
Incredibly interesting, Professor.
The Earth Custodians movement merely strikes at the core. There is nothing to lose, really. Free will comes with personal responsibility, and there is no personal responsibility without staring at the precipice and taking action. And yes, free will does exist, but within the law. We all have the free will to notice or not that nature, immutable law, just works the same way for everybody.
For many, a utopian view of the future is simply not possible. What we know is that 150 years ago, they would say that it was impossible for us to communicate around the world without being present and traveling for months and months on, wagons. So the question is not if a utopian future is possible, but are we willing to accept a utopian future?